Hello, everyone. Welcome to this inner alchemy session. This one is all about using blocks as initiations in our life. I'm so excited about talking about this. This is something that I have been practicing and researching and experimenting with for decades. This is my favorite thing. By the way, I should have said this before. I love doing this. This is literally also what I do as a transformation coach. So if you have questions, if you get stuck on something, if you want more help, you can hang out after the recording, or you can reach me. I can put my website in the chat really quickly. And that way, this is like literally what I do. Happy to help in that personal way, one-on-one as well. Okay. Beautiful. So we are going to be talking today about transforming the struggles that we have into initiations in our lives. And this, I think, is the most important thing that, or one of the most important things that we can do when it comes to our own evolution. I've always been moved by people like Ram Dass, Alan Watts, Sharon Salzberg, who really take that loving awareness that everything that happens to us is grist for the mill, that we can make it hard, or we can make it part of the dance. Those are two Ram Dass quotes, kind of back to back there. And I don't know if I found this necessary because my life was really hard from the get-go, or if this is just how I'm hardwired. I have no idea, but these are my deep core beliefs that are backed by an enormous amount of research and study, and then my own life experience, as well as talking to many, many, many people in my life about this very thing, which I'll get into more. So what we're really going to be doing is I'll give a little background to all these things, like what is spiritual alchemy? Why the hell are you listening to me talk about it versus someone else? Things like that. And then some kind of caveats and maybe addressing some resistance that could be around some of these ideas before we're going to get into the kind of breakdown of how to take a specific struggle or a specific block in your life and really shift it and be able to alchemize it into an initiation, a breakthrough, a portal into a new way of being. So we're going to go through those steps together, all the way from acceptance to action. And I know acceptance is kind of a funny place to start, but it will make sense. And yeah, so I'll start a little bit about why I'm the one that's going to be talking about this, why I love this so much. And we'll get into spiritual alchemy more. And then we're going to go through the list. So it's really helpful. You don't have to start this now because this is just background, but in the back of your mind, if you don't have a specific block that you're like, holy shit, am I right up against this block? It's helpful to find a block just so that you can practice the steps so that they're more ingrained when you do, when that block shows itself, you'll kind of have it practice. So you might have joined this because you're like, I have the block, it's right here. But you might also be like, I have a few blocks. So just choose one. The four kind of examples that I typically use are a health block, like a health crisis or struggle, a spiritual crisis. God knows we all have those. A work crisis or a relationship challenge. Those tend to be the areas, but if you have another area, by all means, share it in the chat. Let me know. It applies for all the things. I've just found that they kind of fall naturally into those four buckets. So just to kind of start this off, I'm Allison. I call myself a spiritual alchemist. I did not know that that's what I was doing for all these years. And when I learned more about alchemy, and then that there was this whole thing called spiritual alchemy, I was like, holy shit, this is the thing that I do. This is what I've been doing. Alchemy is, historically speaking, it is the ancient study and practice of changing elements, literally turning lead into gold. So it is an elemental shift. It is a transmutation of one thing into another. It's a very sacred practice. And so that is like the bare bones understanding of alchemy. Spiritual alchemy is about taking what we are given in life and alchemizing it through a process, right? Refining it, shifting its properties into another thing that better serves us or is potentially more valuable to us. So turning life's lead into life's gold, so to speak. And I just want to say, before we get into the details of this, some people might be like, wait a minute, this isn't fair. Not all blocks are the same. Or my block is like, I had no choice in this. So how can I alchemize it? I hear you. And this is not about suggesting that all blocks are fair. Life isn't fair at all. It's insane and chaotic, and we're all doing our best. And they're not all blocks are equal either. And some, we have blocks in our life that are big or small, and someone else's blocks could be potentially quote unquote harder than ours, etc. So I'm not trying to be spiritual bypassing here. In fact, it's the opposite, which is that if we can learn to harness the energy of life and the obstructions that we face, then even with life's unfairness and inequalities, we have the ability to transmute what we are given. So I just wanted to name that right out the gate. The other thing I wanted to name before we get into it is that you might think that it's bullshit that we can transform anything. Or you might think it's bullshit that the universe is on our side and it's working in our favor. And that's totally fair. You don't have to think anything. You're a spiritually sovereign person. You can believe whatever you want. But I challenge you to find a reason why it wouldn't benefit you to at least take these practices on, because it will only open more doors to you. It'll only help you troubleshoot more. To believe that the world is operating in your favor, even if it looks like it absolutely isn't, can only allow for more possibility. Because when we believe that the world is not acting in our favor, we are literally handing over the keys of a car of our lives to someone else, or to the vicissitudes of oppressive systems and insane shit, or our weird boss, or, the stock market or whatever, all of which are terrible things potentially. But when we just say, I'm going to choose to believe that this is all happening in ways that I can work with it, it will only create more space in our lives. It'll only allow us to see more options than we initially thought. So just throwing that out there as another caveat before we continue. I love this. I have been doing this practice without really knowing it from a very young age. Just a little background on me before we really get into the steps. I was born into a real shitty situation in my life. Not a great house, very unsafe, very scary, and really, really confusing. And I mean, it was just, let's just say it was a dark way to grow up in a lot of really intense ways. And I remember as a teenager saying to myself, I'm going to make this one of the best things that could have happened to me, because I can connect with anyone, because I know a type of sorrow and a type of fear and a type of anxiety that connects me to anyone else who has felt these things. Which is incredibly mature considering the limited two sweater that I was wearing, the fuzzy striped stuff. I cannot believe I had access to these thoughts, but I remember knowing that this was going to be something that helped me get in touch with a strength and a connective force in my life, and that I was going to just absolutely demand that of myself, that this would not shut me out of my own life, but instead allow me to connect with others. I've used it in my health. I was diagnosed pretty early for Hashimoto's, which is a thyroid disease. I was diagnosed at 23. I was bedridden for a year. I went $40,000 in debt. I was extremely sick. No one believed me. They tried to put me on antidepressants, etc. And I remember then saying to myself, for some reason, I'm going to make this the best thing that's ever happened to my health. I have no idea why. I remember the moment. I remember where I was in Los Angeles when I decided it. I remember the walk I was on. And it's true. And I have worked since then to be the healthiest version of myself because of it. I remember in my relationship, I knew that the divorce that I was going through, which was pure hell with a rough character, let's say. I feel bad even saying that, but it was a tough time. I remember being like, I'm going to make this experience make me the kindest partner I can be. And with my career as well, I knew that I was out of alignment with my last career. I was an executive producer and showrunner in television. I knew that by doing it, I was ignoring a lot of my gifts as an intuitive and an energy healer and someone who loves doing this, a spiritual alchemist. And I had to make that shift as well. And I knew that that was going to be an initiation of source, leaving that amount of security and respect into a totally unknown field. So covering those areas, I feel very comfortable in those areas, and there are countless other examples of it. Those are just 4 big ones to just kind of try and get a lay of the land and what we might be going through. So I have been using this series and refining it over the years. So let's dig in. Unless anyone has anything that they want to share or offer, you're always welcome to at any time. And if you have any questions or you relate or anything, by all means, feel free to say something. Otherwise, I'll continue. So what I've learned is that there are a few specific steps that really, really assist in this process. And the first step seems counterintuitive, but maybe not. To me, it always does, because it's my least favorite step, which is accepting exactly where you're at. The exact block that you have is the exact thing you need to accept fully. And when I say fully, I mean the full situation, the complexity of it, the lead up to it, the results of it, whoever was part of it, whoever got you here, and also what it's done to your physical body. What has it done to your nervous system? What has it done to your capacity? Because you have to know what you're working with if you're going to move forward. This is my least favorite step, because I always want to go straight to like the initiation part and get like right up in the next thing. I'm like, I don't want to think about this. That'd be awful. But that's actually really, really necessary to being able to do anything else in this process. When we ignore where we're at 100%, we get ourselves into a deficit. We are not able to touch into the subconscious beliefs and the limiting beliefs that we have, and we ignore our physical body. And I guarantee you, whatever block you have is going to come back way harder, way bigger, way shittier, because you were not able to fully immerse yourself in it. Titrate ? Do you mean titrate into how you're feeling in acceptance?
I think what I heard from that, why I put titrate, was to titrate like the processing of the material around the situation that you're at, and then also titrating, I guess, like letting in the energy that will replace that. You were talking about capacity of the nervous system, so I mean, yeah, is that what you're saying?
100%, 100%. Because when we don't know what we're actually able to hold, we can think we want something that in no way, shape, or form can we carry. And so the titrating, absolutely, you can titrate the kind of acceptance. I think that from my experience, and I think everyone has to listen to their own bodies and their own experience and their own gut reaction. I think that for me, the resistance that I have to acceptance is actually harder to carry than the acceptance itself. So I haven't experienced a need for titration in terms of that momentary, like, okay, fuck, this is really what it is. However, the titration in terms of what you're calling in, super key. And that's a full step in and of itself in here, is how to actually become an energetic match, you could say, to that reality that you are trying to call in. Because when we just use our mind, we can just like totally screw everything up. We chose to come here in 3D form in a body, and we have to respect the limits of our bodies and also the limits of our lives. We'll get into that a little bit about, titrating in to what is possible for yourself. If you're not careful, especially when you are experiencing anxiety and low capacity and all of these other things, can again really make the process much bumpier and create a lot of meta shame in the process, which is the last thing we want to do. So I love that. I love that you brought up titration. We're thinking the same thoughts. Okay. So when we start to acknowledge where we're at fully, when we're like, okay, this is really what's fucking happening here, we also have to meet ourselves with compassion. Oh my goodness, I see a very cute cat, Inez. If we do not meet ourselves with compassion, we are not able to move forward. We have to be able to hold our current moment with compassion and understand that we are here, and of course, we're frustrated, and of course, we're upset, and of course, we're, exhausted at this block or this struggle that we're experiencing. And if we can, this can be tricky, meeting ourselves with self-love and with gratitude for the fact that we're showing up. If we're feeling really blocked, it can be really, really challenging to access self-love, because you're like, well, if everything was better, then I'd be able to break through, whatever the thoughts can be in that. What I offer here is this: if you cannot find self-love in the way that we kind of prototypically think of self-love, then what you can do is recognize that the self-love that is showing up is the fact that here you are trying to work through this block. That alone is self-love, because you're not giving up on yourself. And the fact that you're even listening to this right now means that there is a part of you that knows that you are worth fighting for, and that there is something better on the other side of whatever this is. That is such intense self-love. That is such intense commitment to a version of you that you've been waiting for. And so that alone can be an access point into feeling connected to yourself. So just throwing that out there. Katie, welcome. We did a little bit of a kind of intro about spiritual alchemy, which means to transform the things in your life into things that have greater value or meaning, or give you an access point to your purpose. So just catching you up. If you have any questions or anything that you want to share, please feel free to raise a hand or put the comments in the chat. And thank you for being here. So another thing that really helps when you're in that place of initial acceptance to this block, and this is going to be one that I'm going to give a few different versions of it. I'm going to give the kind of version that I use, and then so many other versions that are helpful, is that you are inherently divine. You have a divinity or a sacredness to you that gives you an enormous amount of power, a power that we give away like that pigeon lady from Home Alone 2 with the seed, just throwing it. It's a deep reference, but if you get it, you get it. I don't know why it came to me, but it's real. We give our power away like it's nothing. Like everyone else gets to tell us how we can run our life, or everyone else gets to tell us what we're worth. Now, we're up against some heavy hitters. There are a lot of religions that really excel at teaching us that we're not worth the things that we think we are, or caregivers, or I don't know, choose whichever out of the grab bag of oppressive systems that we were born into. But we still make a conscious choice to give that power away, that we are incredibly powerful beings, that we are divine, that we are sacred. Or if you don't like divinity or sacredness, that you are inherently good. And if that's something that's really, really hard for you to feel in that moment, I totally get it. You're always welcome to reach out to me. We can talk about that. I do free 30-minute sessions all the time. But to believe that you are inherently good and inherently worthy of joy is crucial to this process. Throwing that out there, there are many, many, many ways that you can be reminded of your goodness, and that you are not alone, and that you are capable of shifting, because you're human. And if you are human, that means you are capable of shifting, because we are creatures of change. That is, as we know, the one constant. So let's then go into, I'm going to use two examples throughout this as just like examples on how to work through these steps. And then if you would like to throw one out there, I can incorporate that into the process as well as I go through. So the two examples that I have in my notes are as ways to kind of work through this is my health and my work life. And I've navigated both of these, and I'll just throw some ideas out there. So for health, what it might look like to be in acceptance is I have this condition and I have to work with it, even though it sucks and it's unfair and I'm scared, which are things that I have felt before. I was diagnosed with something that has no cure, and they were like, you're going to have to live with it forever. And actually, the first thing they told me was congratulations on becoming a woman. That was cool. I was 24. That was awesome. And, then it was like, you're on your own on this one. We don't know what causes it, and you're just going to have to deal with it. And so that feeling, that accepting of the enormity of fear, and the fact that I was alone and that no one was going to save me in my own life, that I had to just figure this out. Being in acceptance of that is an example. Another example would be if you're a job that you don't like, or that's out of alignment, I need to make a change. I know I don't deserve this. I don't deserve to be treated like this, or I don't deserve this happening to me. I am scared. I don't know what's next, is a full kind of like, okay, this is where I'm at in those moments. So the step one is acceptance. The second step, this is where we start to get into like, I mean, this is my like fun stuff because again, I just really don't like accepting how shitty things are sometimes. This is all about evaluating and really understanding what your inner blocks are. So we have this outer block, right? We've got this thing. And again, if anyone wants to share like a block that they're going through that you want me to loop through this, I'm happy to. So what ideas or beliefs do you have around this block? What are the things that you say to yourself in moments of tension or stress? Because a lot of us, God knows, I'm very guilty of this. I have ideas that I live by, but then under moments of pressure, my real ideas come out of that. How I think that the universe has just put me in this room and everyone else has these better laws of the universe. But when it just comes to me, I'm like, no, these rules only apply to me, which we can get into. But what beliefs do you have around this block? What are the ways that you talk to yourself about this block? So, and what about the ways you talk? And so there's kind of two, I've noticed that there's kind of two categories. There's more, I'm sure, but the two dominant ones that come up are, what are the ways that you talk to yourself about this block or this struggle? And what are the ways that you talk to the universe about this block? So some examples. For health, I'm doomed. Bad things always happen to me. I'm always the sick one. I'm so bad at taking care of myself. I have no discipline. How can I change when the doctors don't even think I can? That's a really big one. Like, how can I do this if no one else thinks I can do this? And no one ever takes care of me. Those are examples of the beliefs. So the things that if you ever talk to your friends about the struggle that you're having, what are the things that you say a lot to your friends? What are the things that you hear yourself say over and over again? It's so not fair. This always happens to me. I'm always the one that gets screwed like this. A work example could be, it's always me against the world. God knows I have felt like that time and time again. No one gets me. I have to work endlessly to be seen, acknowledged, or paid. Or my personal favorite, I have to be perfect to get what I want. So those are some beliefs that I hear all the time. Or if I speak up, I'm going to get in trouble. My needs aren't as valid as other people's needs. No one's ever going to love me. No one's ever going to want me if they know who I really am. I can't ever be honest. I can't trust. These are all kind of common things. So if anyone has any that are showing up for them that they want to share, that would be great. Otherwise, I can keep going. I'm going to give this one a second so that I can share a block. Yeah, that would be great. Because it's helpful to give us also a second so we can kind of think about what are some main things that you're hearing. It'll help as we go through this to have a few lines. But yeah, Brendan, I would love to hear what your block is.
That was your invitation, right? To share.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and any thoughts around it. Yeah, of course. Welcome to share anything.
Um, the block that's in front of me right now is a money block that I have struggled with having, yeah, so even it's like as I talk about it, I'm already starting, I feel the contraction already. Yeah, it's taken me out of my head to be able to even talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I've lived pretty much paycheck to paycheck, with a little bit of room here and there. And now is probably the best I've ever been. I feel like because I've been touching it already, and I've been noticing like abundance leaking in, not just money, but other types of abundance as well. But there's still something that's like keeping that's damming the energy from flowing this way. Um, and there's a part of me that like I see the part of me that like really fucking hates money and like doesn't trust people to know what to do with money. And I can see that there was a bit of lack of trust in me around that as well. That if I had too much money, I don't want that responsibility to have
Mm.
money and oh, I need to do good things with this money if I have it. And so I just have like
Yeah.
resigned to like, I mean, I'm fine, I'm comfortable, I'm afloat, and I have a beautiful and place to live and minimal things, but I don't really need much. And maybe that's just me convincing myself I don't need much. That's kind of like the general, yeah, the general story.
I hear three things with that. One is what's so interesting. I'm going to go backwards. The first one is I don't need much, which has nothing to do. I love that you said that. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about
Hmm.
because it does. But at the same time, this isn't about what we need. It's about what we want.
Hmm.
And the ability to know that you deserve what you want. You are good enough. You are worthy to want. You don't strike me as a Bezos guy. I'm not seeing you being like, fuck it, I'm going to get money and I'm going to get in a spaceship. I'm going to put a fucking cowboy hat on. Let's ride. I
That's
don't
part of
see
the
that.
issue is that's part of the issue. That's part of the issue is that I other people like that. I think that's part of the block that I'm not like I'm not accepting the inner Bezos, you know?
Well, the good thing is, my personal belief is you are who you are if you have money or you don't. There are plenty of amazing people who make a lot of money and are not evil cowboy hat spaceship riders. Um, and but there is this thing of I maybe I'm just someone who will only have what I need. Now, money is really fantastic because it is an energy, it's a weighted energy, it's a charged energy. To say that energy or that money is a neutral energy is really activating for people because of course it's not, but we all have our own conditioning around it.
Hmm.
But money is energy. And the other things that I'm hearing, it's like you're safe to hold on to energy. So the other two things that I heard, one of them is that you don't trust yourself to hold things in a way that are in alignment with your values, right? Like, I don't know what I would do with a lot of it. It feels like a lot of responsibility,
I'll
which
reframe
is
that
interesting
slightly and
because,
say that I'd say I haven't trusted myself because I can feel the trust coming
yeah,
in now. I'm not in a place where I'm like, I can't trust
yeah,
myself. Yeah, I just want to, yeah, to
that's
clarify.
great. That's great. And then the other thing that I heard going back to the first thing you said was about reception, to be open, which is what's so interesting because blocks are when we feel a literal block against the thing we want. We can feel, I mean, if you got a
Hmm.
good block in your life, you can feel it
Oh
pushing
yeah.
back on you.
Oh yeah.
And so
Yeah.
being open to receiving that, yin energy, that ability to receive is also wrapped up in trust. So trusting that you can receive and it can be safe, trusting that you can hold and it can be safe, and trusting that you can say what you want and have that be safe and not have it mean something about you that you want more than you need. Um, and those are that's just what's coming forward to me as I'm listening to you. What are some thoughts around it? Because, the thoughts we have around a block they're really good to work with. So do you ever hear of do you hear the repetition of a certain thought when it comes to money that comes up for you?
Well, I think I've shared some of those. I'm just distracted now by feeling anger starting to move through my body. Anger is coming online. Yeah. So that's
Mm.
what's here. Yeah.
Well, we can keep talking or we can take a break and you can kind of breathe and come back to yourself if you'd
Oh, I
like. We
feel
can
okay.
totally do
I
that.
feel like I can hold the anger if you feel open and everyone else feels open
Yeah.
to like my anger being here, but I'll do my best to not let it leak into
Yeah.
the container.
You're okay.
Cool.
I trust you. Um, so, saying something like maybe a belief that might be the one that you want to work with is, I don't trust my ability to receive, hold, or be able to, or my ability to want or feel safe in my wanting.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
or
it.
great.
You're
That's a
getting
great
that.
one.
That's
So
exactly it.
great. So then we'll hold on to that, and then we'll weave that through these other steps. Does anyone have any other beliefs that are coming up that are just like a belief that they know that they hear a lot about, like no one I'm trying to think of common ones that we hear is no one loves me as I am, or if someone saw who I was, they wouldn't, you know, or I can't figure out what spiritual practice feels right, you know, spiritual crisis, or anything around work or anything around health. If anyone wants to throw something out there, you're
I'd be
welcome to.
happy to share. I am dealing with like a work block. That's goodness, I feel like been going on for a whole year now. But in my industry, for those of you who don't know, I work in the television industry. I'm a producer for non-scripted TV, and boy, do it's a very toxic environment to work in. And I think something that is often told or forced upon us, or thought wise anyway, is like if you're not working your ass off 24/7, you're not you're not doing it right, or you're not putting your all into it. If you're not awake at night thinking about work, coming up with new ideas or this and this at all times, then you're not right for the job almost. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So your belief is like, if I don't work tirelessly, I'm not worthy of this job.
Right, right. If I'm not burning myself out, I'm not putting
Oof.
in 100%.
Okay. That's great. Yeah. And Farah is thanking you for sharing that. That's a very identifiable one as someone who's also worked in television. God
You know.
knows the feeling of my worth is equal to my accessibility and my martyrdom. Yeah, that's a well-worn groove. It's a gross one. Thank you for sharing that. So I hear that. So these are some really great beliefs around blocks. And so here's what we can do with it. The next step, this is when things start to get like, really, now we're starting to like get into like, why the fuck is this still happening to me? So we're going to get curious about these beliefs. This is a combination of a variety of different modalities that are all very similar. Byron Katie is, I think, the most obvious one. If you're familiar with her, she just calls hers the work. It's very similar to Eckhart Tolle. There's a lot of people who kind of espouse this getting curious about your beliefs. So what we can do here is start to inquire and work with the things that we say to ourselves all the time. And this is when we start to get into energetics and frequency and things like that. If that is not your vibe and you're like, I don't like that woo-woo shit, there are other ways you can literally say your vibe, whatever you're emitting, whatever energy you hold, let's say. Everyone can feel when someone has a great and like magnetic energy versus a repelling energy. So it can be as simple as that. But what this does when we start to get curious about these beliefs is it illuminates the invisible walls that hold us in. When we start to really get curious about this, we start to see, like, I feel like I want to mime it out, like, holy shit, this is the container that I've been in this whole time, that is one of the reasons why I can't move through. And or if we're thinking about literally blocks, God knows I've had blocks that I feel like they're just in front of my face. This is kind of the walls that we've put up on the either side of us that won't allow us to shimmy out of the way to move around the block. So here's what we do. We start with asking ourselves, do we know if this belief is true? Do we know if it's true? To say, you know, I cannot trust myself with my resources or my wantings. Do we know that's true? And if we think yes initially, I ask you to ask yourself again, do I know that to be absolutely true? There's no wiggle room there. Because certainly, you know, to say this, I see a man on this call who has a very healthy, happy looking cat who seems to be very trustworthy indeed. Or I see another human being on this call, another lovely lady who also has a very healthy, happy looking cat who seems to be able to have the discipline and the wherewithal to take care of themselves and to provide for themselves, even though she's taking a minute to access this call. So do we know that to be true? Some examples of mine: no one gets me, or it's always me against the world. Initially, if you were to ask me that, especially when I'm really worked up, I'd be like, yeah, I know that's fucking true. But then if I were to sit with it, no, I know that that's not true. I know I have people who are in my corner. I know there have been times where I have been completely down and out and someone has shown up, sometimes even miraculously, sometimes without me even asking. Or I'm so, if it's the health one, I'm so bad at taking care of myself. Or how can I change when the doctors don't even think I can? Do I know that to be true? No, there are other doctors, there are holistic doctors that do believe that I can heal, that I have that power. So we ask ourselves, is this true? And then we follow up with am I sure? Is it absolutely true if we have doubt? And then I love, well, we'll get to this one. Who would I be if I adjusted these beliefs? Who would I be if I didn't have that belief? Who would I be if I didn't think I was always doomed in my health? Who would I be if I didn't think it was always me against the world? I know if I wasn't always doomed, I would feel a little bit more air, a little bit more of a breeze around the ability to help myself heal. If I allowed myself to drop the belief that it's always me against the world, then it would allow me to ask for help, which is a very scary thing if you've had a lot of years in your life where you have felt like it is you against the world, and for good reason. I want to honor the coping mechanisms and the belief systems that we've had in place up until this point. They're very intelligent. They kept you alive. Most of them are incredibly wise survival strategies that are now outgrown. Because as you evolve, but your beliefs don't, they're the weight on the bottom of your hot air balloon that you can't see because it's just under the basket. And so we have to start to really look at those, because even though they were really, really healthy when we developed them in terms of surviving, they are now keeping us from surviving. So having compassion for those beliefs, but then knowing that they're probably really old. Those beliefs probably don't know how old you are or what you're up to or how capable you are now. And it's safe to start to get curious about them. So another really fantastic way that we can, and I actually will use those two examples before we do my final little curiosity trick in this, to question the beliefs of, am I safe when it comes to what I want? Am I safe when it comes to being able to receive? Can I even feel open to receive? Or is there, in my experience, when I feel shut off from receiving, that's because to me, there was always something insidious and wounding in receiving. So that is a deeply ingrained belief for me, because it was true for me for a while that receiving things like financial support came at a high cost. Like literally money was too expensive with what it came with. So whether or not that resonates, that's an interesting, curiosity. And to get curious about that and wonder, who would I be if I was fully open to receiving what is right for me and trusting that I'll know if it's right for me or not? Who would I be is a really interesting feeling. You can almost feel your body shift when that belief system comes online. Or who would I be if I believed that I could make a living, let alone make an abundant living, without working tirelessly to be seen and validated? Where I could work like some of these magical fucking wizards out there that are working 8-hour days, 6-hour days, making a healthy living, which is 100% safe, normal, and healthy outside of this capitalist grind culture machine that we were born into. Who would you be if you knew that to be true? And furthermore, where would you look for work? Think about how many things shift when you're like, wait a minute, this is not the grind culture for me. I don't need it to thrive. So those are some interesting questions that you can ask yourself. Another trick that is my favorite trick, just because it's got those like aha yowza moments, which is, I don't think anyone else uses yowza like that, but we'll let that. I yowzed my own belief system, not accurate. But a question that I love is, what if I substituted an I for a them in that phrase, in that belief? So some examples would be, how can I change when my doctors don't even think I can? the version of this to kind of gain some clarity is, how can I change when I don't even really believe I can? It's an interesting question. Now we're getting to the root of something here. Or with work, you know, the original work, it's me against the world. So this would be, it's always me against me. And that is true. And so when we start to replace and mess with some of the nouns in here and the suppositions of these beliefs, what shows up can be really, really interesting. So how can I feel safe with what I want? Can we throw an I in there? How can I feel safe with myself? Or how can I be able to receive what is intended for me? Can be potentially, how can I feel safe to receive what I know to be true, or my innermost reception? Like, can I hear myself? Can I receive myself in fullness? Could be a potential if that resonates. Or, you know, the belief of, how can I can't work unless people see that I'm working tirelessly, unless I'm validated by others in my efforts. Could be, how can I work and be paid? Or I cannot work unless someone else is seeing how, like, me work tirelessly, like nonstop. Could be, I can't make a living unless I see myself work tirelessly. We're starting to get to the innermost kind of coil of these beliefs, which is that, yes, you are in an industry that's super toxic, but perhaps you are agreeing with the conditioning that you've been given. And that creates some room. The validation piece is lighting me up around the money block. That's wonderful. I hope the lighting up is a good lighting up and not like a, yeah, which I would be like, well, we should talk about that. I'm hoping it is, but okay, good. So, you know, that shift of seeing that we could actually be co-signing these beliefs that we've applied to others, or that are echoed endlessly in this sick culture that we live in, which is sick. I'm not denying that we are in a hellstorm of oppressive systems. But when we recognize that we have adapted it and have been co-signing it every day, it gives us, there's fury for sure. There's going to be anger and there's going to be grief, because here we are carrying the heaviest of backpacks every day, wondering why everything feels so weighted. And there's some feelings about being like, oh, I can take off the backpack. What the fuck? I just walked really far with this backpack on. So there can be grief and there can be acceptance around this. And also, it is your life and it is waiting for you to step into it. So put the backpack down. Now's the time. You had to walk right here to find yourself here. So those are some thoughts around getting curious around your beliefs. And the other version of this that you can do that I have found to be incredibly transformative and really gnarly every time I've applied it is, so we've talked a little bit, that was about, oh, beautiful. I'm glad you like the backpack. It's true. As someone who's had 2 back surgeries, I'll tell you, the weight is real when you walk around all the time with that fucking backpack on. My God. Another belief, you know, that's the one where we're like, oh, what have we been doing? You know, what are the beliefs that we have turned in on ourselves? The other one that I love is, what are the beliefs that we have applied to the universe because we learned them from our caregivers? This one got me hard. I was reading a book about archetypes, from Carolyn Miss, and it just struck me. And it was about, how do we believe that God treats us the way our caregivers did? And I'm getting goosebumps now. It blew my mind. And so some versions of that can be, you know, a version that I think I've mentioned is, I have to be perfect to get what I want. Oof. That is not in my thinking brain. I would never say that their God or that the universe would have to have them be perfect in order for them to be worthy of what they want. But because I was raised in an environment where my caregiver absolutely made sure I was fucking perfect before I got what I wanted, I've just been living life up until that point where I recognize this blind spot, this, as I call it, PT Cruiser style blind spot, which is to say a giant one. I don't know if you've ever ridden a PT Cruiser, guys. You can't see shit. But anyway, so when I recognized that I had been applying all of the laws of the universe based on the way that my caregivers raised me, caregivers who, by the way, were not into caring or giving, everything shifted. And that can be really tricky. So when I see, I have to be perfect to get what I want, is that what their universe really thinks? I mean, that's like a very Protestant value that we've all kind of mainlined by accident. But that's not how my universe works. If I could elect a universe, I wouldn't have them do that. I wouldn't have my universe treat me like that. So conditionally, God having conditions, it's craziness. I mean, no offense to anyone who practices a religious belief that still instills the 10 commandments, but heavens to Betsy, not my God. And furthermore, and this is when I get real crazy, no one gets to tell you your relationship with the universe or with your God or with your own divinity. No one can get in between you and your relationship with God or whatever animates us, this life force, this chi, the prana, whatever. That is, you get to decide that. So when we start to recognize that we have been applying universal law because some ill-equipped parent, caregiver, anything like that, Sunday school teacher came in and started to mess with our concept of how we deserve love from the universe, we have to throw that away and welcome in a new belief system that allows us to be as we are in this moment right now, worthy because we exist. And if God did not want us here, or the divine or the universe didn't want us here, they wouldn't have put us here. So we get to decide how our universe works. Now, does that mean you get to say everything I want, I get? Well, that's your smaller self. I don't think everything you want is what you actually want. Life would be really, really boring. And in my opinion, we have, levels of soul and our spirit, and we're here for growth and awakening. And so deep down, what we want is an awakening and a soul evolution, is my personal belief. There are many other beliefs out there, but I don't think any of them would say that we're here to get everything we want in the way that we think we want it, because thank God we are not the most intelligent force in this reality. So those are just some ideas of how to get curious with the blocks that show up. I hope those are helpful, because now what we're talking about is rewriting our story. I love this. This is our turning point. This is our axial tilt of the blocks into initiations. The stories we tell ourselves, I think, are some of the most important things and the most important choices that we have in our lifetime. If you're into Joseph Campbell and the power of the myth, this will be your shit. If you're into storytelling, if you're into watching movies, if you're into television, as someone who's made TV, who has interviewed people for over a decade, I know that the moment that every single person resonates with most is when someone shares a personal story where they were given a shit hand and they said, fuck it, I'm going to make this the best fucking thing that's ever happened to me. And then everyone goes, holy shit, look at this fucking hometown hero. Oh my God. Because we know that we have that power within us, and it's all about how we shift our understanding of our circumstances. And of course, still appreciating our bodies, our capacities, our 3D form, and taking care of our 3D form during this entire time. Again, always having compassion for it and taking this at the pace and the rate that feels good to you could not be more important. Shutting this process down because you are trying to go mind over matter is not going to help. It's going to get you further in the hole. But when we start to rewrite our story is when amazing things can happen. So what happens if we choose a different path? What if the universe was on our side, even though things are fucking hard? And all of this is for our awakening. What if I'm going to take a big swing. So if I'm out of line or it doesn't resonate with you, you toss it right out of your brain right now. What if the money struggles that you're experiencing are going to keep tapping you on the shoulder until you recognize that you are safe within yourself? And it was the most gentle, loving way that the universe could say, please, please, you can trust yourself. You can love yourself. You can receive safely. You are safe. That's an idea, throwing it out there. It might not resonate for you, but it could. And if it does, I hope it's helpful. Or what if the belief of, I have to work endlessly in order for me to be worthwhile, in order for me to be worthy, could be the moment that you recognized your inherent worth, regardless of what happened to you, regardless of your caregivers and what messages they told you about yourself and what about makes you lovable, where you could suddenly experience that you are worthy just because you are inherently good, and that you deserve to be happy and safe. And that was a belief that is tapping you in that sore spot until you recognize that you are inherently worthy and valued because of who you are, not because of your productivity, which is capitalism extracting you at its finest. Some other potential, for me, my health stuff was like, what if this was saving my life? I don't know why. I remember thinking, what if me cutting these foods out and doing these protocols and taking this medicine was actually going to add decades onto my life? Because it's going to make me more sensitive and I have to get tested more. It's going to help me catch other things or whatnot. Or with my work, what if this is the only way that I can have a child? It's because I left this industry because it was so toxic and it was so exhausting for me that without me seeing it right now, it was the only way I could actually have the real life that I wanted outside of prestige. So there are ways that we can start to rewrite what's happening to us. Let me just check this out real quick. There was an architecture all about our invisible backpacks. Really? I'm going to look that up. 2011 is a helpful detail. I'm going to Google the shit out of that, Sam. Thank you. That was a random analogy. So I'm glad that someone who was probably way more, thoughtful and organized came up with a stronger, not 2010. I'll check my notes. That's okay. I'll still look it up. Thank you though. So what if, and if it doesn't feel like it's resonating, right? If it feels too big, that's okay. But you are allowed to rewrite it. No one else is. It's your life. So even if it feels impractical or if it feels too overwhelming, I already know that you believe me because you're here. So the cat's out of the bag. I don't know who put the cat in the bag. I wish we asked that question more often. But, we know that you believe that deep down. So you can rewrite whatever this moment is to be the best fucking thing that happened in this area of your life. It just takes bravery, and it takes the ability to deeply connect and trust that what you want is worthy of being wanted and being lived by you. So I also know that letting external perceptions color our experience, again, when we're not rewriting our own stories, is we're back to the pigeon, Home Alone 2 lady metaphor, where we are just allowing other people to tell us what our lives should look like. So when we don't rewrite our stories, when we don't pause, because we spend so much of our life reacting, right? We wake up and we look at our phone. We're bombarded by news that is so unnatural for our bodies to hear, right? War is unnatural. Poverty is unnatural. Separation is unnatural. Racism unnatural. Hatred, it's all unnatural. So not only is it unnatural to just be alive, but we get all of it in this incredible amount of news at one moment on our phones when we first wake up. And then we spend the rest of the day reacting like a pinball in a pinball machine to all of the things that are happening. We get an email, we get a call, we're late, we have to do this, we have a meeting, we go home, we're doing this shit, we're always reacting. So taking this moment right now to decide in this moment, just getting present alone is the most powerful thing, because that's the only place you can actually make a choice. But getting present right now and saying this could actually be the thing that shifts it is incredibly powerful. It cannot happen in the future, and we know it didn't happen in the past. So being able to say in this moment, I choose this to be my reality, is pulling. It's almost like I see like a vacuum, like a suction, all of your power back from all these places where we're just kind of reacting instead of we decide in our sovereignty. This is going to be different now. So here are some ways that we can choose a different path. You know, for me, I was like, this is going to be the best thing that happened to my health. This is the moment I begin to take care of myself the way I had always helped that someone would take care of me. That was really hard. I think people with a lot of chronic health issues can often have felt forgotten or neglected, and it's up to them to take care of themselves. That can feel very foreign, and there's a lot of grief in that. This is when I finally realized I am worthy of being believed, tended to, and empowered, and I can trust myself. Those were beliefs that I took on as a moment where I decided that I was going to rewrite this narrative of me being sick forever, which is what all the doctors told me. Or for work, I have had enough of playing smaller than I am. These are just examples of ideas or rewrites. I am choosing to step into my gifts. I believe my needs are valid. It's a huge one. Lindsay, that also applies to you. I know the universe is working with me to find me the perfect job. The universe wants me to feel safe and protected. I can no longer ignore my purpose. That's a good one. This is the moment where I decide to claim the future that was meant for me. For money, it can be, this is the moment that I decide that I am worthy of abundance. This is the moment that I decide that I am receptive to what is meant for me from the highest good. This is the moment that I decide that I can trust where I go from here. Feels particularly present. So these are all options or beliefs that we can start to pull into our fields, which is interesting, the pulling into our fields, because now we're kind of getting into the energetics. This can also be around the realm of manifestation. If that's a term that turns you off, ignore it. If that's a term that is interesting to you, then let's go. It doesn't really matter if it's manifestation or just matching, right? If it's just shifting and being able to magnetize a different future or call in, or even just take action from a different place. It doesn't even have to be as kind of metaphysical as manifestation. It can literally just be like, well, I'm different, and so the things I do are different. The trick with this next step, as we start to find and highlight beliefs that feel more in alignment with where we want to go, is to both think them and feel them. So before we move forward, does anyone want to share any belief that they have decided is a particularly poignant rewrite for them where they're at right now? If anyone has heard something or was able to kind of carve out a particular belief that was very powerful, where they were like, oh, that I can feel that shift. Or I can feel the power in that. That feels good. That feels like the opposite of how I've been feeling. Give you guys a second. Okay. If you guys want to add it, you can always add it to the chat and we can follow up. I am trustworthy. I am trustworthy is huge. That's a huge one. That has so many other implications in terms of relationships, in terms of growth, when they talk about going vertical versus horizontal. That's a little bit more of like spiritual talk, but being able to be trustworthy means also the ability to be loved, because trust and love are so wrapped up in each other. So I love that, and I think that's about as powerful as it gets. So what we start to do is step into this, and we think it and we feel it. We know there's an enormous amount of science and studies around what happens when you both think and feel something, what it can literally do to your physical environment. If you are a little EBGB on the manifestation, let's call it the quantum field, because that is what we're talking about here. Now, you do not have to have a degree in quantum physics. And if you did, I have lots of questions for you, because that sounds fucking hard. But the idea of being able to call something in and to be able to embody it from the quantum field, from the field that we pull from the field that is beyond our understanding and comprehension of existence, and yet animates and maps our reality. When we work with our thoughts and our feelings, we're able to call from that in a much more palpable place. So when the reason why we start to feel into this, and this is, you hear this a lot in manifestation, but it's also in things like timeline jumping, quantum leaping, this is all the same thing. When we start to pull in this new belief and we really embody it, we are an energetic match to what we are calling in. And this is where titration, like Brandon mentioned at the beginning, comes in and is really important. And it's important for two reasons. One, because we have to be careful about this. We have to be honest with ourselves. And two, we'll get into more about what happens if we can't think and feel this new reality and how helpful that is. Because that can help us do some more digging in terms of our subconscious thoughts, what's subconsciously holding us back. And so when we are talking about an energetic match, this is like the real rubber hits the road section here. This is, we're now out of the mind and now we are more embodied, and we're start doing these exercises that take time and commitment. We choose the belief, we think those thoughts, we add how it would feel, and we start to really animate this visualization and this experience. What would be happening? Would you, if you had a job that paid you and you didn't have to work all the time, what would you be doing in your off hours? What would it feel like to go to bed at night saying, I only worked 6 hours today, and then I was able to go to that class, and I was able to do this thing, and then I saw my friends, and I'm being paid, and I actually feel incredibly valued and appreciated? Or what would it feel like to feel trustworthy in your bones? What would open up in your life? How would your relationship shift? How would your experience of even your job, of the way that you shared who you are with others, how would that shift? How would you plan differently? How would you negotiate your friendships and your time differently if you knew in your heart that you can be trusted in your goodness and in your safety? And starting to give those experiences that visualization. Now, this is where we get into the place of like, what I like to do for this is I make a list. I make a list of the things that would be happening in my life if this thing were happening. So if you're like to get a new job, I would literally think of what it would feel like to get that like beep on my phone that I have a new email and that coming through, or what it would feel like to open your phone and check your banking account and see that there was more money there and be able to plan something. What would it feel like to go on a date with someone and have them see a part of you that, God, you really wish they didn't see just then, and they did, and they don't look away. In fact, they get closer to you because of it. What would it be like to believe your own gifts and share them with others in a place of authority instead of as a neophyte, instead of as someone who's constantly apologizing for being this, having this skill and feeling like you have to validate it? And what I do is I write a list of how these things would look. I try and incorporate as many senses as possible. I try and make these things come to life. And here's what I love about this thing. If you've known me or you come to these before, I'm an expert ruminator. I'll ruminate on shit all day long. If you give me the opportunity, I'm working on it. I always work on it. I'll work on it for the rest of my life. I love it. It's a struggle. Block into initiation. You get it. And we do this practice all the time. What I'm describing, we do it all the time. We're just doing it with the worst case scenario possible. I guarantee you. I guarantee if you're here, you've been thinking about your block and you know exactly what it looks like if nothing changes, or probably what would happen if everything was as bad as possible forever. We even heard a version of it. Maybe this is just what I need, and this is what I'll be like for the rest of my life, and maybe that's okay. We are playing this out in our heads. We can do that, but for the thing that we want. This is also really hard because what is planning? What is that kind of future projection? If we're not doing this, it's recycling our past experiences and projecting them into our future, right? That's all we have go. That's if we're not being super conscious about this and working with the quantum and coming up and doing things like this, all we're doing is recycling the things that we've lived through already, because that's all our brains have access to. So breaking out of that mold and stepping into a new possibility and imagining that the same way that you run through your worst case scenario all the time. Worrying is manifestation for the thing you really don't want. Recycle and make more of it is exactly right. That's exactly right, Brandon. All we're doing is we're taking the past and we're just making some weird quilted version of it, putting it in the future with new faces and names, new jobs, new practices, new medications. So this is where there's a concept of when we're talking about moving in a manifestation kind of methodology, what that looks like is often we have if I have what I need, I'll be able to do what I want and then be the person I want to be. If I have the job that is totally, equal and fair and healthy and balanced, I'll be able to work like that. And then I'll be able to be the person who has the job where I feel valued as I am. And I don't have to burn myself to a crisp in order to be accepted as someone worthwhile of my paycheck, which is fucking insane. And so omnipresent in so many industries. Or if I have the money, I'll be able to finally learn what I'm like, that I am trustworthy, right? If I have the money and I don't spend it in ways or do things with it, or I'm good with the responsibility, then I'll know that I'm someone who's responsible with money. This is quite backwards. What we unfortunately, and I only say it's unfortunate because it's hard, but if it were easy, we wouldn't be here with this block. We wouldn't be asked to up level. We wouldn't be asked to transform. So instead of have, do, be, have what I need, do what I'm supposed to do, be that person, we flip it around where we are that person. We do what that person does, and then we have what we need. I understand that this is manifestation simplified in terms that are almost eerily, it's like, it's so alluring, and that's kind of the problem with it, because we're about to hit a roadblock here in that. But that is the roadmap for this process. Can you say that one more time? Absolutely. So when we are initially, I am sure I do this for myself all the time. We have a goal, right? My goal is to get really healthy and to balance my HPA axis, my, hypothalamus pituitary axis for my autoimmunity, right? Say that's my goal. To me, it's like, so when I feel better, I'm going to do the things that allow me to get healthy, and then I'll be a healthy person, right? If I can just get the energy and I can just get the resources and I can just get the things, then I'll do the right things and then I'll be healthy. So if I have what I need, if I have the money, then I will be responsible with it, and then I'll know that I'm trustworthy. Or if I receive the money, then I'll see that it's safe to receive, and then I'll know that receiving is safe. Then I'll be someone who can do that. If I have the job that treats me in a balanced way, I will work a balanced amount, and then I'll know, and I'll be that person who knows that I am a worthwhile employee, even if I don't die on the hill of incessant work hours every day. So we're going from if I have what I need, then I'll do what I need to do to be that person, into if I am that person, then I'll do what I need because I'm already that person, and then I will have what I want. And so what this does is it then, of course, then the next step is, okay, how do I be this person? How do I be a healthy person? How do I be someone who has a new career? How do I be someone who's spiritually aligned? How do I be someone in a relationship when I'm single? So this is where we're getting out of here and again into a practice. And if I told you it wasn't a practice, and if I told you that you would be transformed tonight, you wouldn't fucking trust me, nor should you. It would be some weird Twin Flames documentary. I haven't seen it, but it sounds bad. Anyway, so this is the work, right? This is part of the work. We've done some of the work. So we paint a big picture. I'm a list lady. I like to write things down, but however it is, paint a picture of what it feels like to have an abundant amount of resources where you actually have more than what you need, right? Where your set level of comfort with resources is different than where it is now. Because we will only allow ourselves to make the amount that we think we are entitled to. So how can you be someone who's entitled to more? And if you can sit in that space and start to illustrate what that looks like, I have to write it all down. And then you start doing things like, can you think the thoughts and feel the feelings? When I'm trying to manifest something, I started doing a manifestation meditation. I did it on Insight Timer. It was 10 minutes. It was led by an Australian woman named like Melissa Ambrosini or something. I know it's Australian because she always says to imagine your partner. And I'm just obsessed. And every time I imagine my partner. And it worked. Every single time I did that manifestation exercise, I ended up having the exact thing that I was imagining, down to the windows, down to the plane ride, down to all of it. I had no idea that I was participating in this whole thing. It just seemed like a helpful guided meditation. That was many years ago. I think it's still on Insight Timer, and I'm happy to link it in the chat, some of my favorite manifestation meditations that will help anchor this in. But really what we're talking about is a consistent practice where you feel those feelings and you believe that you are capable of the shift, and you become someone who does that. You become that. And there are other ways that we can do it. We can talk about that more. That is also something that is very specifically what I do in my coaching. So if that feels like a block, please reach out to me and we can figure something out, and we can go through that, even if it's down to just like that discovery call where we go over the initial issues. But this is really sitting in that energy and believing that you are worthwhile, that you are worthy of what you want. Now, there's a couple of things. One, you don't sit here and think, so say you want to feel abundant and you want to feel like you are resourced and you have more than what you need, but you have what you want and it feels really good. You don't say, I mean, you can, but it's just not going to be effective. Ideally, you say, I am abundant. I have more than I need. It's very important that it's present. If you say, I will get what I need, I will get that job, you will constantly be attracting the space in between what you have and what you want, which is better than just being like, this is horse shit. Everything's against me. This isn't fair. Why won't things shift? But that shift into making it already happen right now, this is the trickiest part. People talk about this shit all the time like it's easy, and it might be easy for you. It's always hard for me. It's always hard, which we'll get into a little bit more. But that is the crux of it. And then making a regular practice of it. It could be writing Post-its all over your house. Sounds corny. I've done it before. It fucking helps. It can be setting alarms on your phone that remind you of the beliefs that you know you are shifting, that you are transforming, that the opposite belief has been fucking running your life for years. So you have to be, I wouldn't say aggressive, but committed, right? You have to be consistent with it. It takes a little bit of time to shift those beliefs. So that's really, really important. But here's the other trick. What happens if you try and you're like, I can't sit here and say I'm abundant. I know exactly down to the cent how much money is in my bank account right now. I can't. Great. This is telling us something. This is showing us where there's a physical block and where you can take steps. So maybe you set your North Star. You can do it a specific amount. I don't know, $10,000 in my bank account. And when you feel, if you cannot feel into that energy, when you set this world up for yourself, this belief, when you pull from the quantum field, so we can go metaphysical woo-woo, or we can go straight fucking science with the quantum. I'm not making this up. This is like particle theory. We're here. If we can't go there, if we can't pull that in because we're too tied to the 3D reality, there is no shame in that. I've been there many times. We find something in between that and where we are now that we can feel into, and we take it in steps. So maybe $10,000, it's like, I can't feel into that extra after everything. Come on. So maybe you go, all right, I can feel into what it might feel like to have $500 more than I did. These are incredibly random numbers, by the way. I have no concept of, there's no actual amount allocated to these numbers. But, maybe that is actually accessible. So when you try and really feel into this thing, if you feel constriction, if your body is saying, no, motherfucker, I cannot get there right now, then you say, okay, let's try another number. And you build up to it with compassion and patience. And if you're like, I don't want to be patient, I get you. Patience is literally the thing that I am worst at. However, it will be a complete waste of time if you do not actually know how to embody and feel that thing that you really want, if your body is saying, no, we're not there yet. So actually, the most expedited thing you can do is find the thing that you can have access to and start to practice experiencing that. This is huge. And this is, we can say it's quantum physics, or we can say that this shit has been around for fucking thousands of years, which it has. It's a very particular type of sutra across multiple continents in different practices. So we've, this is a well-worn belief. So this is not like an Alison Mandel fresh special here. So we can hold the energy of what is at least as close as possible to that goal, and we keep at it, and we keep growing it, and we look for proof, and we ask the universe for proof, and we keep holding it, and we do not hold doubt. And if doubt shows up, we forgive ourselves, and then we just return, because we are new in every single moment. In every single moment, we are new. So if you fall off, you get back on and you try again and you do another one. Sometimes when I'm really trying to shift something, I'll do this thing 3 or 4 times a day. I'll do a 10-minute manifestation meditation 4 times a day so that I can bridge myself. Now, some other things. Before we actually get to the other things that are pretty big. So you want to get serious with your nervous system. This is important. If the thing, so say you're like, I want a job. I want this job. I want this fucking badass job, and it's going to be awesome. And I know exactly what the job is. When you check in with yourself about it, it is really important to know if just because you want it up here, are you ready for that job? Are you ready for that relationship? Or if you're like, I want to get out of this relationship. I've been in this relationship. I've been trying to gather the strength and the power to get out, to believe that I can be loved after this. I've been with this person because I think they're the only person that can love me, whatever the belief is. Before, like, can you actually leave? Do you have the security to make that shift? Is it safe for you to do it? That's something that your body, your nervous system is going to tell you when you take that idea on. And so maybe instead of saying, if you're like trying to leave a relationship or a job, if you go to that place of like, all right, I'm single and it's fucking amazing, and then you sit with it and there's something off, maybe the thing that you embody first is that you are someone who has the belief in the inner power to start making the shifts to support yourself as you make that choice. And your body will tell you, okay, yes, that's what we needed. We needed that stop. Then you get into that space and you start making choices from there. And then you go to the place of being like, fuck yeah, I'm single. Let's rock, or whatever your feeling would be. Same with a job, same with a spiritual practice, same with a health issue. So, when we're doing this, we're imagining these worlds. So for health, it would be imagining me taking care of myself, eating the right foods, feeling better, living longer. When I got diagnosed with my thing, I don't know if anyone else has had like future visions of themselves. I used to always talk to my future self. Now I look back and I'm like, you did not have any mentors. If your mentor was just future you, it was lonely out there. But I would always talk to my future self to help me out of situations. And also when I got bad news, I would kind of have visions of what my future might look like if I chose that path. And like the one for health is I always imagine myself older, drinking an herbal tea and meditating and like having this very specific meditation setup. I've always seen it. Once I had it, I haven't been able to shake it. And I know that one day I'm going to be sitting there and I'm going to remember, oh, I'm bridging back to that time that I first envisioned this. Here I am. I've had these moments with other times in my life. And so we can start to literally choose the path, and we can imagine it, and then we can know it will happen. And you can even talk to your future self. I love talking to my future self. It's an extraordinary thing if it feels natural for you, or even if it doesn't, you can try it. For work, some ideas that might be, just imagining this world, seeing myself finally accepting my gifts, my talents. And like, I get really specific with it. Like when I was creating the company, I created a company called Omnia. It's a ritual membership platform where people take courses in spirituality and things like that. It's Omnia Network. And when I was envisioning it, I envisioned me opening up a Zoom and seeing all these faces and everyone talking. And it was something that was very specific, and it has since happened. So getting down to like the Zoom details, the seeing the numbers on your phone, the waking up, knowing you're about to do something, what you would pack your bag if you went on that trip, all the details, it helps. And then we go to a place of taking action. Does anyone, before we go into that, does anyone have anything they want to share, or does anything come up for you when you're thinking about taking on that state of being or getting into that place? Is there anything that feels challenging or exciting, or something that you're like, fuck, that felt so good, I can feel into it? If anything shows up, you can let me know. Oh, I see typing from Lindsay. I'm going to give it a sec. I do love the idea of talking to future self. It is so helpful. It is so helpful. I actually used to write letters. I wrote myself a letter when I couldn't get the strength to leave my husband. I wrote myself a letter saying, Allison, here are all the things you will do. Do I have it? I have it somewhere. It's usually near my desk. And I wrote out everything. I wrote out, here's what's going to happen. There's going to be good parts and there's going to be hard parts. There's going to be things you're going to lose. You're going to meet other people. You're going to have some weird sex. You're going to have some great sex. You're eventually going to find this person. You're going to have, I mean, I went for it, and I've tucked it away somewhere, and I found it. And when I found it, every single thing that I listed had happened. And yes, that means the weird sex happened. It did. It was a weird few years, but it was wild to see that when we do this, we actually are accessing a very wise part of ourselves. So it can be future self as an elder, and it can be future self just on the other side of this thing. But it's a really, really powerful tool. So then we get into a place of taking action, and this is our final step. And this is when this is back to the, instead of have, do, be, do, have. So when we are in this energy, what choices do we make? If we're starting a new job, who are we as someone who has different beliefs about ourselves? If we're if we feel healthy, what do we do? Now, here's where we get into a giant caveat area. By no means do you leave a job before you have security, leave a relationship before you have a place to go, stop taking medication until be, do, have. That's it. Yes, that's it. You know, you don't stop taking medication. I did this by accident. There was a time where I was convincing myself that I could heal, and I cut my medication too early. I since was able to cut it down, but I cut it too early, and it stopped my process of actually healing. So we are still bound to these bodies. I believe that miracles can happen, but we're not in this miracle process. This process we're creating miracles, but it's not miraculous how we're doing it. You know, this makes sense. This is actually quite logical. It's just our minds take us on a wild ride, and we have to have an enormous amount of bravery and strength to say, I want off the ride. I want to get on a different train. I don't like this path or track. I just combined 8 metaphors into one statement, but you're all with me. So this is where we start taking action from a new place. And these actions are supportive, and they are the actions of someone who knows that they can trust themselves, or knows that they're worthwhile and valuable, regardless of if they're working more than 16 hours a day, my God, or someone who knows that they have the ability to heal, or someone who knows that they are worthy of being loved in a relationship by someone that they also respect. So what would that person do, right? That person might start dating and actually swipe right on someone that they never thought that they could get otherwise. Or that person might start applying to jobs that feel kind of ridiculously luxurious compared to what they're used to, or maybe slightly outside their reach because they know that they're incredibly worthwhile. Or that person might apply to a job that might make them more money, or, give themselves opportunity to actually create abundance. And so we start to take action, and you hold that energy. I, especially if I'm making a big shift, I will do the like that meditation, or I'll even just look at my list sometimes of things that I want to have happen right before I do some work. So I can kind of like bless or energize the thing that I'm doing with the energy of that knowing, of that being. And so that way you're infusing your life with this, and you trust that you are in an energetic exchange. You're not alone in this. You are doing something that is supported. So that is how you take action from that space. So what that looks like for things like our examples are choosing foods at the grocery store that are healthy, making holiday plans from a healthy place, not overbooking myself was a big one, prioritizing my health over partying and such, advocating for myself at the doctor's office. These are all choices that I took. New choices, or for work, taking action to learn more about my passions and getting certified. You could go out and buy that domain name that you always wanted, or applying for that new position, or submitting for a raise, are all actions that you can take from that place. Because you can always begin again. This could be the moment where everything shifts. It absolutely can be. It is. If you decide it is, then it is. You can use this on anything, and you are always loved and you are always supported. So those are my notes for this. I'm so excited to hear what resonated. I'm so excited to hear if anyone has any questions or thoughts. Know that I'm also, I can stop recording and I can be here after that as well. But that is really, in my experience, the process from acceptance to action, how to shift into a different way of being, and to start really addressing and dissolving the limiting beliefs and the subconscious beliefs that we have that are running the show, that are co-signing the challenges that we face. But when we start to dissolve those beliefs, all kinds of new possibilities show up. And then all kinds of things are possible that we never knew because we never gave ourselves permission to be worthy of them. So that is that. Does anyone have anything that they want to share, or any questions or anything that are coming up for them?
I just want to say thank you, Allison. I need to jump off, but I just want to share that that was very, very valuable and meaningful to me. And I'm just really grateful for the wisdom that you shared this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. How sweet. Hi, Carly. Hi, Sam. Hi, Lindsay. If anyone wants to share anything, I'm here. I'm ready. We can walk through stuff. We don't have to walk through things, but yeah.
I was gonna just say that even just this last sentiment, deciding that deciding that this is the moment that everything is going to change, because I think it's I mean, I love it. I'm obsessed with it. It's like a mind shift to do with yourself, because it's in these moments that I feel like I get so stuck in the, like, starting over feels so daunting, and it feels like I've come to coming to the end of something that I have to start over, like it feels like a failure type of thing, and then I'm rebooting. And so that, I think I get really caught up in that negative side of it, and it's hard to spin your mind to be the positive of it, right? But it's like the you know, whenever the door is closing, there's a window open, or you know, that type of feeling of like the optimism behind it is sometimes very hard to find, and I get really spirally in the negative of it, which just sucks. But of course, like I so want to believe that it's on to bigger and better from where I am, from everything I've learned thus far in my life. Like, it can only, you know, I hope it can only change to be better from here. Does that make sense?
It does. What I'm hearing is like, it's really, really hard to stand up to the momentum of things going wrong.
Yeah. To
Like,
stand
that's
up
what
against it. Right. Because
and say,
it,
I'm not letting things continue to go wrong. I'm going to choose that things are going to go right, because it's really, really, it's almost comforting when things are going wrong for so long, when you're in an industry that's toxic and shutting down and has strikes and no one's working. It's really easy to fall into the momentum of, this is totally fucked. And by the way, it's incredibly unfair that you have to stand up to the momentum. It's not that like, yeah, but you got to do it. It's like, you don't have to. You can stay with the momentum and you can see where it takes you. And also, which is, you know what that is. It's more of the same, and it's taking you out of the driver's seat of your own life, of your own security, of your own sense of well-being and empowerment and sovereignty. But also, it's really not fair that you have to stand up. So I just want to acknowledge that it's not fair, and it's filled with frustration that is righteous of, why the fuck do I have to assert my worth as a human being? So just, you're not suggesting any of that, but I just want to throw that out there, that is really fucking unfair and really challenging. And I want to acknowledge that. And also, when you step into I refuse to be thrown around like this anymore, and you may not be able to control the job opportunities that are available to you that come find you, but you can control your headspace, your determination, what you look for, who you say yes to, and what you're even available for. Like, some things can find you. You can be like, I'm not fucking available for that. That's ridiculous. And they'll know, and there is a term in Nietzsche and Buddhism called devilish functions, which is that when you set an intention, the universe will test you by giving you, shitty things that kind of go against the thing you just vowed, to see how much have you committed to it. And so it's tricky, because when you decide to step into that, you can be thrown things and you have to stick to your resolve, but you can decide, I'm not taking another job that abuses me as a person. Oh my God. And that is it's just wild, because it feels like you have to push so hard against the current. You have to swim so far upstream, which is really not fair, but you can do it, and you have to do it. And that is spiritual sovereignty. That's sovereignty of all kinds. But it is crazy to think that at any moment can be the moment where you decide it's different. And because you've decided it is, because you're the only one existing in your consciousness right now. You're the only one having your experience. So it's wild, but it's also the most liberating feeling in the world. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your blocks and your beliefs and all of that. Does anyone else have anything that they want to share before I stop recording? Well, thank you all so much. I'm going to stop recording right meow.